Brace the rudders! Raise the sails! Raise the sails!
Captain, an unidentified ship is approaching. Over.
Roger. Wait, is that an enterprise sales solution?
Reach sales professionals, not professional sailors. With LinkedIn ads, you can target the right people by industry, job title, and more. We'll even give you a $100 credit on your next campaign. Get started today at linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply.
With a major selection of the looks your kiddos love starting at just $4 in the Walmart app, a new school year means a stylish new them. Who knew? Find skater skirts and Crocs that say, I'm casual but cool. Sparkly sneakers that say, it's my classroom, you're just learning in it. And preppy polos that say, I'm the teacher's pet, even if they're mommy's menace at home. Find their favorite styles starting at just $4 in the app. The Walmart you thought you knew is now new.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold!
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan equivalent to $15 per month required. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Speed slow after 35 gigabytes if network's busy. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
Hello and welcome to The Price of Football, the show that looks at the money behind the beautiful game with me, Kevin Day, and Liverpool University's Kieran Maguire. You do make me laugh, Kieran. There's a slight freeze, about a millisecond freeze on your feed, which means it's like looking at Ray Charles and Lord Allen for our older listeners. The most sinister-looking ventriloquist dummy ever. I was going to say you got both thumbs up. It's very unusual for a ventriloquist to have both thumbs up. That would have been a great trick. How are you, Kieran? You're up in Liverpool, I assume, judging by the hotel accommodation behind you.
Yes, yeah, I'm up in Liverpool. I pop round. I rent out my apartment over the summer. Went round to see the tenant, and it proved to be very, very expensive. A, I had to buy a new washing machine, and B, we've got an attack of weevils.
Weevils?
Weevil, yeah, because it's an old building, and they sort of get embedded in the brickwork. But because it's been uncommonly warm in Liverpool recently, they've come out.
Oh my God!
Yeah, had to do some chat GPTing to work out what's bad for weevils.
Kieran, what have I told you? You're not a natural landlord. You should.
I'm not a natural landlord.
Send a Baroness. He would have been buying his own washing machine and getting rid of his own weevil problem. It's Newsday, Kieran. Some cracking news, because it turns out I haven't really been paying attention, but other stuff has been going on this week while UEFA has been ruining my life. I know. Yeah. My passport expired. I've got an emergency passport coming because ahead of a little trip to Switzerland next week. Hopefully, that's the next step up after last night's rally. There's some cracking news stories, Kieran. The first two involve the figure £1 billion, and I'm almost reluctant to it just seems astonishing. The first, so Man City's new contract with Puma, Kieran, the first one.
That's right. I was about to sort of do a cackling Dr. Evil impersonation with £1 billion. But what Manchester City have negotiated with Puma is a new kit deal. It's a 10-year deal, but it's a record for the Premier League. And it is £1 billion. So that eclipses Manchester United's 900 million. I think Liverpool's new deal with Adidas kicks in on the 1st of August, which is why there's lots of sort of baffled fans saying why Liverpool still doing adverts with Nike. Well, that deal expires on the 31st of July. Chelsea and Arsenal have got deals probably in the region of 600 to 700 million. So a lot of people have been querying the number, but I don't think what they quite realise is that Manchester City are more popular than people give them credit for in markets which perhaps people don't necessarily give a lot of attention to. Certainly in the Middle East, Manchester City are extremely popular. But also what I've noticed when I've been, and I whiz around here, there, and everywhere. What I've noticed is Haaland shirts in particular are ridiculously popular in the United States and some of the other markets, some of the Asian markets as well. So Puma, who effectively use Manchester City as their billboard, whereas the likes of Nike and Adidas spread their elite relationships across a variety of clubs, have gone all in. This contract will contain what you might call bad faith clauses, and those will be geared towards the outcome of the outstanding hearing against Manchester City by the Premier League, which has gone very quiet over the course of the summer, and I think a few people have commented upon that. But should Manchester City successfully defend that case, then they would have to also qualify for the Champions League on a regular basis for the whole of that 1 billion to crystallise. But I think it also reflects the fact that clubs are getting a lot of pushback when it comes to ticket prices, and especially Manchester City, who have really rolled back over the course of this summer. But what we are noticing at the same time is that merchandise prices, there's sort of bits and pieces of moaning, but they're still accelerating much faster than general inflation. I think we covered the story a couple of weeks ago that if you wanted a Spurs shirt with all of the trimmings, i.e. the pitch ready shirt, the name on the back of it, the badges and so on, it was going to cost you more than 150 quid for a single shirt. And punters still seem to be willing to pay that, whereas there's greater pushback on the ticket prices themselves. So therefore, the manufacturers, I think, are willing to pay more for the privilege.
I suppose it's more of a choice when it comes to buying a shirt. You've got no choice when it comes to buying a ticket. You either go or you don't go. So this shirt deal then, Kieran, would that include all the other clubs in the City group, or are they just manufacturing City's shirts?
No, this appears to be just Manchester City itself rather than CFG. Wow. So you won't have any distribution. Although it has to be said, some of the other CFG clubs do partner with Puma. And when I've seen some of the shirts, my first reaction is, is that Manchester City's new away shirt? There's certainly been overlap because quite a few of the CFG partners are sponsored by Etihad Airways, for example, and made by Puma, and quite often a bit of sky blue will work its way into a shirt that you wouldn't necessarily anticipate it.
I have to say, I do like that City home shirt with a sash. I do like, obviously I like a sash, but that's a good shirt. The second story, Kieran, with that huge amount of money, although it's become less huge in the 6 years we've been doing this pod, to be perfectly honest, I would have thought this had been a quiet transfer window so far in the Premier League, Kieran, but quite clearly I'm wrong.
No, it's you think we're mid-July, I think we're now up to around about £1.3 billion in terms of overall transfer spend. And I guess we've got to look for the drivers of that. And there's been a lot of comparison, in my view, with 2024. First of all, we've had the Club World Cup. So therefore, Manchester City and Chelsea wanted to spend money to accelerate their ability to bring players in. We all thought the big players could only sign for the start of the tournament, but as we saw with Chelsea, they signed players during the course of the tournament. So that's accelerated spending. That's the first issue. Secondly, there were 6 clubs in 2024 who probably were in danger of a breach of FFP, and that meant that there was cautious spending from those clubs, which meant that there was a dip in spending. And then if you look at summer of 2024, Liverpool decided, we think we've got a really good squad already, so we're not going to spend money for the sake of spending money. And Liverpool, in my view, are a super smart club when it comes to recruitment. We've had Ian Graham, their former director of research. Michael Edwards is now back there, and I think the sign of a good club is the ability to ignore the noise. So when there was on social media, all of that FSG out chants going on and hashtags going on, they just said, we actually think we've got a fantastic squad. We think that squad's good enough to win the Premier League. And they were right. Some of the players that they'd signed for a couple of years earlier, who hadn't perhaps really hit the running, they felt that they were coming on and they would improve. And we've seen that as far as success. But whereas this summer, Liverpool have now said, we do think we need to reinvest, and Liverpool have been one of the big spenders. So you put those factors together, and that's why we're seeing this huge level of expenditure. And what's going to happen over the course of the next 6 weeks, who knows? But there is the opportunity to spend more. And once you start to get Premier League clubs buying players from each other, that creates a ripple effect, because if Wolves sells Kuna to Manchester United for 60 odd million, that means that Wolves have got 60 million sitting in their bank account, and that money then starts to circulate, because it means that the recipient club can now go into the spending market itself.
I'll tell you what, Kieran, I know we joke about Chelsea's transfer policy, which is essentially buy everything that moves, giving them a room in the hotel, but I think they look like a good bet for the Premier League next season. That João Pedro and Rory Delap, I think they're two really shrewd buys. They're on top of a really good midfield. I thought they were fantastic against PSG, I have to say.
Yes. And so this isn't a football show, but I never thought that 5 players who were playing for Brighton 2 or 3 years ago would be crowned world champions. So we're trying to take some credit for it.
Oh, Kieran, I'm so sorry. That's very insensitive of me to pick at that scab. What was I thinking of? I'm sorry. This next transfer story, Kieran, is a massive breakthrough that will be a history quiz question for years to come in the future.
That's right. It's the transfer of Olivia Smith from Liverpool to Arsenal in the women's game, but it's the first £1 million transfer fee. Now, you and I both gasped when Trevor Francis moved from Birmingham City to Nottingham Forest way back when. Brian Clough always maintained it was £999,995 to not put pressure on the player. I've never seen a more terrified-looking football player than Trevor Francis sat next to Brian Clough at that particular press conference. It was a benchmark figure at the time. I think this is a benchmark number. And again, there's been a few sniffy remarks about it, but I've been through the accounts of every men's club, and Arsenal's women's team have now paid more money for this fee than 39 teams out of the 92 in the English game. And if you were to look at Arsenal's women's team's revenue, it would place them probably third highest in League One. So,
wow. Okay.
All of these people are saying, well, the women's game isn't generating money. It is generating money. Arsenal would also have, I think, the 17th highest average attendance if they were a men's team. So I think the snarkiness probably isn't warranted. It's good news for Liverpool. They've got a good fee for a young player. It is indicative also of the financial benefits of being successful in Europe as far as the women's game as well. That the rewards for Arsenal winning the Champions League for UEFA for the women's game has allowed them to go into the market and make this as a statement signing.
I would urge younger listeners, Kieran, especially any of them with an interest in history of football, to look up the YouTube video of Trevor Francis looking terrified. Well,
yes.
Brian Clough, who'd just come from playing squash and had kept everybody waiting, was tapping his squash racket up and down on his knee, telling Trevor Francis he needed a haircut. This does seem like a significant development, Kieran, in women's football. But there are one or two voices raised who are suggesting it's significant for the wrong reasons, in that it's yet another sign that women's football is already out of the bottle, if you like. That it's going down that route where only the top clubs can afford the top players and will be able to compete for the top titles.
I think that's a valid observation. If you take a look at the difference between the side finishing bottom of the Premier League to Manchester City at the top, Manchester City generated around about 6 times as much revenue. And if you then compare that to the women's game, the difference between the sides finishing top and bottom, it's around about 11 or 12 times the differential, which means that it's difficult for those clubs towards the bottom to be able to compete. I think with the extension of the WSL from 12 to 14 teams, it's good that it increases the number of matches and you see benefits there. But my concern is, how is the distribution of money going to be organised? We've seen Crystal Palace's women's team. It wasn't a great experience for them getting to the WSL. And when you're trying to build, horrible word, when you're trying to build a brand, when you're trying to encourage people to come and watch them, and we've had this conversation on many occasions, the crowds that they were getting were absolutely fantastic by the history of Crystal Palace women's team, but it's not enough to provide the funding to allow the clubs to invest. It's good that the WSL is full-time professional, but we've also seen that those issues with some of the clubs like Blackburn Women and so on, where they say, actually, we'd rather not even be in the Championship because of the financial demands of being in as part of the overall WSL. So it's good, but you're absolutely right to flag it. Does it mean that women's football is going to be so dominated by 3 or 4 clubs that the remaining clubs, yes, they're doing it for love of the game, and that's absolutely fantastic, but that it reduces jeopardy, and that's going to have a detrimental effect as the WSL tries to sell future broadcasting rights. We've seen this where there have been dynasties in other European football. It actually tends to have a negative impact upon the value of the rights.
The Palace women's experience also illustrates in a way how new this iteration of women's football is. It's probably still only 20 years old, women's football. And the fact is that if the Palace men's team had been relegated last season, God forbid, we would have still sold out every home match at Selhurst. In the Championship, you'd still expect us to pretty much sell out every home match at Selhurst, particularly if you had a good start. Whereas the women's team simply haven't had a chance to establish themselves in the hearts and minds of local fans. So everybody I know goes to see a Palace women's game. They enjoy the experience, but not to the extent that they're going to dedicate themselves to a team that's not doing particularly well. So, and it'll probably be another generation yet before you see fans that are so in love with the women's team that they stick with them come what may, because you can only imagine that the crowds for Palace women in the Championship next season will be lower than they were this last one.
That's right. I think you used the right word there. People went along for the experience, whereas you and I, we go along because it's part of muscle memory as much as anything. What do I do on a Saturday, or what do you do at the weekend now? But it is very much geared towards going to see a match because that's part of our identity. That's part of our own history and heritage as football fans, and that will be. I want that to be replicated in the women's game. But if your first experience, if the first time I'd gone to a football match, it had been a horrible, horrible experience, that might have put me off for years. And as it was, I had a positive experience. Well, seeing the side that you're wanting to win, getting tatered every week isn't good. Isn't good for them, but it's not good for the growth of the women's game either.
I have to say, Kieran, this reflects no credit on me whatsoever, but Axel Tuanzebe is not a player that ever really came on my radar, apart from thinking that if you were allowed proper names in Scrabble, he'd be worth about 400 quid, 400 points on a triple word score. But this is an unfortunate story involving Axel Tuanzebe.
This is, especially because he was at Manchester United for 13 years. So he'd come through from a young age, He played in the Premier League for them around about 40 times, but it was very noticeable that his career was afflicted by injury. He was then released and went to Ipswich Town, and he played for them last season, and he's now just joined Burnley. But he's suing them. He's suing his former employer for alleged negligent medical advice because he'd had chronic injury issues, and by chronic I mean long term. It will be a difficult one to prove. As somebody that's sort of seen the other side of a medical negligence claim in terms of giving financial advice on it as a witness, these things are very, very slow to progress. They are very difficult to prove. It involves an awful lot of getting witnesses from both sides, and medical opinion varies just as opinion on political opinion varies, and so on. So I suspect it will be a slow and tortuous process, and you just wish the individual, Axel, you just wish him a good career.
Yeah,
and he seemed to be dissatisfied with the advice that he was given at Manchester United. We're not qualified to comment on that particular issue, but it does show that medical negligence is an ongoing issue as far as the professional game is concerned.
If you've shopped online, chances are you've bought from a business powered by Shopify. You know that purple Shop Pay button you see at checkout? The one that makes buying so incredibly easy? That's Shopify. And there's a reason so many businesses sell with it, because Shopify makes it incredibly easy to start and run your business. Shopify is the commerce platform behind 10% of all e-commerce in the US. Sign up for your $1 per month trial and start selling today at shopify.com/promo. Go to shopify.com/promo.
Hey, it's Paris. You know I love sparkly things, right? Like stars. Duh. And thanks to Hilton and AutoCamp, I just slept under them. Picture me, serving looks by the fire outside my luxurious Airstream, making s'mores with the kids, while a national park is our backdrop. The great outdoors meets Hilton hospitality. That's hot. Explore all the new ways to stay at Hilton.com. Hilton for the stay.
Well, there's one thing we can comment on, Kieran, because, as you say, it'll be a slow, torturous process. I imagine it'll be a very expensive one as well, because lawyers will be involved. Medical opinion at a private level doesn't come cheap, and we know from experience this could take 2-3 years longer. That's a big old financial distraction for a young man, isn't it?
It is. It could be that he's got a personal insurance policy, and therefore it's being pursued through that means. He will have taken advice, presumably, from the professionals in his team, i.e. his agent, stroke manager, or whatever the advice is. And if they genuinely believe that here's a case, then that's the appropriate thing to do.
Now, last Sunday, Kieran, like many football fans, there was a dilemma, because I really wanted to see England play Wales, but also Chelsea PSG. No matter what the tournament is, Chelsea PSG. So I decided to do the worst thing possible, which is I'll do 10 minutes on, 10 minutes off. I watched 10 minutes, and I managed to miss 4 of the goals. So that was a pointless exercise. But leaving aside the quality of the football in the Club World Cup, Kieran, whatever we say about it, I think Gianni Infantino will probably be delighted with the figures, and I think Chelsea will be even more delighted with the figures financially, won't they?
Yes, I mean, FIFA are very much trumpeting this as a fantastic success. Gianni Infantino didn't have a press conference as such, because a press conference you'd normally expect journalists to be able to ask questions across a variety of subjects, and this was very much a tailored exercise. It was probably a financial success for FIFA in the sense that they generated huge amounts of money from the broadcasting deal with DAZN. At the same time, DAZN got a £1 billion, and £1 billion is coming up very regularly in this conversation today, but they got a $1 billion investment from a Saudi investment firm. I think there are parallels with what we've seen in terms of the disruption, and that's not disruption necessarily in a bad concept. In boxing, Riyadh has now become sort of a well-known venue. We've seen the same in golf, and it now appears that Saudi Arabian money is allowing the creation of a new tournament, which is being seen as a challenger by UEFA. It's noticeable that there was no congratulations from UEFA for two of its members participating in the final. There doesn't appear to have been any congratulations from the Premier League to Chelsea either in winning, and that would had that been the Champions League. So it's pistols at dawn between Ceferin and Infantino. Infantino is hinting at a bigger tournament, going from 32 to 48 teams. And it was very interesting that he name-checked Manchester United, Liverpool, Napoli, Barcelona, and a few other teams. You go, hold on, these teams sound very much like the majority of the teams who were in the Super League. And is this an attempt to create effectively a privately funded Super League? And if it contains all of the clubs from all over the world, you can see the attractiveness to it, to broadcasters, or certainly to the zone, if it picks up in broadcast figures. And we don't know the figures as yet. I must confess, I didn't watch it myself, but had it been any other club that PSG were playing other than Chelsea, I probably would have watched it. But as you know, I've got history with Chelsea, and therefore wasn't prepared to back them. But from Chelsea's point of view, they made £85 million from winning the tournament, which is fantastic. And to put that in context, they made £81 million from all of the match day revenues they generated from matches taking place at Stamford Bridge. Yeah. So it is worth taking place, and it is very, very lucrative. I think you've got to set aside the strong arming of Inter Miami into the tournament, the midday kickoff times in 35-degree heat, and the 25-minute half time to squeeze in Robbie Williams at the final, and then there's Donald Trump, which we're not a politics show. We're not saying anything about that.
You forgot the poor little sniffer dogs with their
yes.
hot tea. I have to say that the Donald Trump moment when DAZN at half time, just before they went back into the second half, said, "Look who we found." American presenter standing proudly next to Donald Trump, who muttered some platitude, and then they had to throw back to Conor McNamara and Andros Townsend, who I love Andros Townsend. Conor McNamara is one of my favourite commentators, but just for a moment, both of them seemed at a loss as to know how to pick up from Donald Trump. We're recording this on Wednesday afternoon, Kieran, quite late, and it's interesting. You talk about pistols at dawn because both the Guardian and the Athletic this afternoon suggesting that Ceferin is kind of absent on parade at the moment and allowing Infantino to grab all the glory and all the limelight at the moment. So that's a situation we need to keep an eye on. And talking of keeping an eye on, Kim, we've had 3 clubs in the last week that we've been concerned about that have gone completely quiet, absolutely radio silent. So the one we were most worried about was Morecambe. So this time last week it was chaos, and then it looked like it was sorted, and then it was more chaos, and then it looked like it was sorted again. But since then, absolutely nothing. Is the deal still on? Are we still hoping the Punjab Warriors will be taking them over?
Well, the most recent mutterings that have come from Justin Whittingham is that an alternative buyer has been found. They were going to announce the deal on last Thursday or Friday. Nothing has subsequently appeared on the club website. Morecambe have played some pre-season friendlies, so they've managed to gather together some players, but nobody's sure what the position of the National League is going to be if they can't prove their finances. Are the players and are the staff going to be paid? This today is the 16th of July. We believe that HMRC have not been paid. We believe that players have not been paid. I suspect that other suppliers have not been paid. Whittingham has been whining on the club website that he's been abused, and also his family has been. And if anybody is abusing somebody else's family, that is way out of line. I'm not convinced that is the case. I suspect it involves a bit of self-pity and poor me. It's very, very similar to the type of comments that we were seeing being produced by Steve Dale when he acquired Bury and subsequently dismantled it. If Justin Whittingham wants to come onto the price of football and discuss it, he is welcome to do so, and we will treat him with professional courtesy, but with a lot of scrutiny as to what he's done. This is part of one of my colleagues at work. He says, "Hey, I've been watching Morecambe for 38 years, and we know that our natural place is probably in the National League, but we've had some fantastic years in the EFL. But we just want to be able to go look forward to football, and to be not having to go through this: do we exist? Don't we exist? Checking Twitter, checking the club website, checking any pronouncements from the local MPs or the local press as well. So it's a very, very poor state of affairs, and there's only one person responsible for the club being in its current position, and that is the owner. Given that a deal was agreed with Punjab Warriors, who themselves now might sue because, by all accounts, they've been providing funding for the club, you do worry what his motivations are. And if people want to get a sense of the character involved, I suggest they read the liquidators' reports at Worcester Warriors Rugby Club.
Sorry, we don't have to do that, do we?
I've done that.
Okay, yeah, you do it, so we don't have to do it, though, don't we? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. You hit the nail on the head, Kieran. I'm aware that this could almost be my catchphrase on this pod, and that's what I don't understand is the deal with Punjab Warriors. It seemed was there. Punjab Warriors said, "We're ready to go. We've put money in already. We've got money up front. We really want to buy this football club. We've got ambitions for it. We want to grow it. We know it's been a bad couple of years." In those circumstances, why would anyone in his right mind suddenly say, "Nah, don't want that deal. I'm going to tell people there's another deal coming up"? It was there. It was handed to him when he played. That was his way of walking away with some degree of. He could spin that as going, "Look, I've got you this brilliant deal with Punjab Warriors. I'm off." But no, it's for whatever reason. Is it ego? Is it awkwardness? Is it greed because he thinks he can get more money for the club? Why would you turn your nose up at that opportunity?
Well, it does seem very strange. I mean, it could be that the deal, given that Punjab Warriors, we are led to believe, we're led to believe from them, but also the board of directors have intimated that they've provided some funding. I think a couple of directors have put money in. That if Punjab Warriors had put, say, £3 million up front and a £3.5 million deal, I'm just plucking figures at random here. But by the time all of those costs, it could be that Justin Whittingham would be left with close to nothing. And for all we know, and this is pure conjecture, and I'm giving this as an illustration, he might owe other parties money, which is secured on his shares from the bond group, which themselves, and therefore there's a complications further down the line. So, yeah, very poor from the owner. zero sympathy towards him. Once again, I would always stress to fans, no matter how angry you are, you focus that anger on non-violent direct action.
Yeah. Do you know what? Sometimes, Kieran, we don't do ourselves any favour when we say, if he wants to come on the show, we will happily talk to him like grown-ups. And then 2 minutes later, we go, and zero sympathy for the man. But we will still happily talk to him like grown-ups. For some reason, Kieran, Brentford are one of those clubs who I associate, and I think a lot of others do, with being a kind of one-man-owned club. But that's quite clearly not the case, because as we've seen this week.
Yes, Matthew Benham, who has done a fantastic job. Again, a bit like Steve Parish, Tony Bloom, fan of the club, has been independently successful, has managed to secure that dream that we would have had as fans. If we had been that successful, being able to go and buy the club. He has accelerated Brentford from League One into, I think it's fair to say, an established Premier League club. They're not a club that you associate. You wouldn't be looking for them to be relegated at the start of the season, for example. But there have been noises, and we've heard some of these noises from one of our secret bees, in the sense that he was looking for a minority stake to be sold elsewhere. So it looks like around about 20% of Brentford has now been allocated to Gary Lubner and Sir Matthew Vaughan. One of them is a sort of a broad philanthropist. I think the other is known for geezer movies. Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels and things like that, as well as being married to Claudia Schiffer, who I believe is someone famous. I'm not. I mentioned this to the Baroness, and she just rolled her eyes. She said, "You don't know how Claudia Schiffer is. She tennis player? I don't know. I don't move in celebrity circles. I don't follow celebrity websites. So I'm not very good at this. But I got a disapproving look at home. But I think the interesting thing is that it values Brentford at around about £400 million. And that's a substantial price. That's around about 2.4 times their revenue as a multiplier. Now we saw Chelsea go for 5 times their revenue. Manchester United probably closer to 7. That reflects I think there is still potential growth from items such as the Club World Cup for Chelsea and Manchester United if they turn it around on the pitch. I think Brentford probably aren't going to be on the long list or the short list of clubs there, which perhaps it indicates why they're being valued on a different metric.
Is there a sort of standard scale then of value to annual income, expenditure, whatever?
Well, it used to be. We used to say 1.5 to 2 times, and Newcastle went for 2 times their revenue as recently as 2021. But since then, because of the huge influx of American investment and American interest, we have seen that 2 perhaps now becomes sort of 2 to 2.5 times. And for exceptional clubs who are de-risked, and by de-risked means they've got zero chance of being relegated and they've got a fair chance of Champions League money, that those figures have gone ahead and accelerated. And also when you've looked at some of the deals as far as US franchise sports, they're being valued on higher multipliers. The highest multiple of all, of course, is Chelsea's women's team.
Yeah.
Which they will swear blue in their face that was a fair price. And the fact that there's been a subsequent carve out of 10% of it at a similar price, they would say justifies the valuation they gave.
Well, talking of fair prices, Kieran, Gareth Bale was linked with a purchase of Plymouth Argyle just a few weeks ago. It seems like he's determined to get a club somewhere in the west of the UK because he's made a brand new offer for Cardiff City. Yes,
and as a very proud Welshman, you can understand why he wants to be connected with this. I think Vincent Tan rejected as absurd the initial price that was bid. Cardiff have slipped down from their their sort of salad days in the Premier League. And I think that the relationship between Vincent Tan and the fan base has deteriorated. I don't think I ever forgave him for trying to change the shirt colour, and absolutely rightly so. I mean, that is one of the issues that will be protected in the legislation as far as the independent regulator is concerned. We don't know that the amounts involved. I don't think Gareth Bale will be putting much money in himself. Certainly when I took a look at what was happening at Birmingham City, they had various shares with various prices and various rights, and it looks as if the ones that Tom Brady were involved have probably cost him a couple of quid full stop, but have potential earn-out rights at a later stage because he's providing sort of the Hollywood sparkle in terms of the ability to sign commercial deals and so on. But it does show that there's ongoing huge interest as far as English and, in this case, of course, Welsh football, Modric and Swansea, and perhaps we'll come back to Swansea a bit later.
This episode is brought to you by Starbucks. Smooth, bright, deliciously crafted. Introducing Starbucks Sunsera Blend, their smoothest, brightest coffee yet. It's a new kind of light roast, one that's packed with so much flavor, it shines no matter how you brew it. So go ahead and try it hot, iced, black, or with a splash of creamer. Visit athome.starbucks.com/Sunsera-blend-coffee to bring Starbucks Sunsera Blend home.
This episode is sponsored by Friskies, who would like to tell your cats hi. Now, if that didn't get your cat's attention, there is one thing that always does the trick. Just pour some Friskies crunchy food in the bowl and you'll hear those paws come running. Works every time. With so many Friskies choices, you can always bring your cats running from their secret napping spots. There's always more to explore. See for yourself at friskies.com or visit your local store.
I might have to ask producer Guy to send me on the Price of Football subconscious xenophobia course, because you discover that Gareth Bale is leading a bid to buy Cardiff City, and you go, thank God it's not another American. It just makes such a refreshing change to have somebody from Wales trying to buy a club in Wales, and I immediately regretted saying that. So I think I do need. I remember asking a Premier League referee recently about subconscious bias towards the big teams, and he quite rightly said, well, how would I know if it's subconscious? Which is a fair point. But yeah, I have reached a stage where I'm having a celebratory cup of tea when somebody from Wales wants to buy a Welsh team. Leeds United got big plans, Kieran, literally big plans.
Yes, the formal application to expand Elland Road to 53,000 has now been presented to the council. I think it was overwhelmingly voted in favour as far as the fan base was concerned. I think it's going to involve the west and the north stands, and work won't start until 2026. Leeds United, as far as their non-match day income is concerned, do spectacularly well because it's a one-city club. It is a club with, you and I know the legacy years of Leeds United from the 70s, and all of the success that was associated with that, and that means that they've also got a global fan base from our generation who are desperate for them to be successful. They've got 26,000 people waiting to be on the season ticket list. So I think they've got a huge amount of positives. There's no doubt that the 49ers, as part of the investment team, they've got big plans. They want to grow. And this could also have repercussions, I think, for Rangers, because if Leeds United are seen as capable of doing it, and we know that Rangers is a huge club as well in terms of its support base, could this mean that a couple of years' time they'll be looking for a similar expansion to Ibrox? We'll have to wait and see. But it is a It's an exciting project. We've now seen the pictures. I think they're hoping to do some other work around Elland Road as well to perhaps increase residential homes as well. And this looks like a very exciting project. And if you're a Leeds fan that is one of those 26,000, it'll be something you can't wait to happen as well.
Yeah, don't tell Newcastle fans or Sky that there's another one-club city in the country, because that will really that'll spoil their narrative completely. I like the way you say work may not start till 2026. Steve Parish would bite your hand off for any kind of work happening by the start of 2026, and he's been waiting since 2020. We almost implied some praise of Gianni Infantino earlier, Kieran, by saying that the Club World Cup wasn't a disaster, which is what secretly we hoped it would be, to our shame. See my comments on subconscious xenophobia. But luckily, Gianni Infantino's been holding up his pantomime villain role this week as well, and FIFA are really not happy with him.
Yes, Sergio Marco, who is I think the chief executive of the global trade union for professional footballers, he has said that Infantino is like Nero. He has made various. I think I read it. It went something about pigs in blankets, which I got very confused about. But Infantino arranged a meeting with players' union representatives who have previously been sacked. Didn't invite the main union to a meeting. Claims that FIFA is in favour of 72-hour gaps between matches. Wow, big deal, mate.
Yeah, wow.
And that players, could potentially have a 3-week break between the end of one season and the start of another. So it's clearly where Infantino's ideals are coming from. But the players' union, and also you look at some of the comments from the players, including Chelsea players. They say, we want to play good football, and there's no doubt that through gritted teeth, I say Chelsea played fantastic football to win that tournament, and they were not able to be 100% because you cannot perform. And for those people say, well, what about tennis? Tennis is a summer sport, and those players, at Wimbledon, they had to go and play for 3 hours, but they get a rest after every 2 games, and they get a rest between every serve, and so on. And that's not being critical. The Wimbledon final was absolutely fantastic on Sunday as well, but that's not the norm, and they're not having to have the stresses and strains. And also, tennis court lots smaller than a football pitch when I last checked.
Yeah.
And mainly you're moving sideways.
Yeah,
which is fine. It's not going to happen on football unless you're David Batty. So
it's. I mean, Kieran, it's almost exactly a month before Chelsea kick off against Palace at Stamford Bridge. Yeah. So those players who took part in that high energy final and that high heat on Sunday, they can't be expected to. They've got to have 2 or 3 weeks off now, surely. I know a lot of clubs that have allowed players that are taking part in other tournaments to come back a little bit late. They can't be expected to turn up next week and go straight into pre-season training the way the rest of the clubs are, can they? That's just not fair. That's not right.
That you're absolutely right, and I know that it's all kicking off between Real Madrid and La Liga, because Real Madrid got to the semi-finals before they were dismantled by PSG. Real Madrid wanted their first match to be postponed because they say our squad is entitled to some form of a break, but La Liga have said, well, we'll push the match back to. We now have a match weekend. I think Real Madrid's match has been pushed back to the Tuesday to give them a couple of extra days. It's not fair on the players. It's not fair on Chelsea fans as well, because they're entitled to expect Chelsea to be able to go and put together. Fortunately, Chelsea have got another 738 players to choose from. But setting that aside, the players do deserve, and they will need a break. And Maheta from PFA, he's commented upon this. Individual players have, the Players' Union have, Infantino, Tinea.
Yeah, I think the Chelsea players are up to about 8 a room now, aren't they, in that hotel? I mean,
Yes.
2 on each bed, one underneath the sofa. One of the tiny ones being swept up by a dustpan and brush. Our final story, Kieran, a lot of our overseas listeners may not be aware of the intensity of the rivalry between Cardiff and Swansea. In fact, many of our English listeners may not be aware of the full intensity of the rivalry between those two clubs. But as you indicated, I think Swansea fans may think that they've got one up on Cardiff this week because they've out-celebrited Gareth Bale, I would say. I'd say Swansea fans would say on a celebrity level, they've won this week's encounter, haven't they?
Yeah, this is absolutely brilliant. Swansea City's new home shirt, and the release of a home shirt, well, the release of any shirt, I think has become an art form in recent years as more and more clubs try to do something different. And you've got to give some of the marketing departments a huge slap on the back. They've clearly been working on this for months. But Swansea says, we're just going to get Snoop Dogg to do it. Which is random but cool. I suspect he's got no idea what's going on, but he is very much an iconic figure, and the shirt looks great. I always like a shirt. I always like a Swansea shirt anyway. It's a plain white shirt-ish, but it's always looked one of the cooler ones to me.
Well, it is. It's also got that serene little swan badge as well, which I really like.
Exactly.
But some of those kit release videos, you remember, it's not that long ago, Kieran, you used to watch Question of Sport, and they used to have the mystery celebrity, where they have all these camera angles, and you had to work out who it was.
Yes.
It's just show us the kit. What's wrong with the old days when your new signing would march out on the pitch, have a photograph of him holding it up? All these, they've all been watching too many Paddy Power videos as well. They're all trying to be clever and moody. It's just get a kid from the youth team out, hold the home shirt up, then get another one up with the away shirt, and then if you've got a third shirt, all this teasing it as well. It's 8 days till we. It's got. I do have to say, Kieran, the new Palace shirt is causing some concern because it's 7/8 a brilliant kit, but the sleeves look like a Brighton shirt. For some bizarre reason, it's got blue and white sleeves, and it's causing some. I know it's causing some discontent. Oh, it's a cracking kit, a lovely proper stripes, but for some reason, it looks like a terrible Tesco shopping bag has been overlaid on the shoulders. Terrible.
But what's happened to us? Let's face it. For 51 weeks of the year, our involvement in terms of clothing, as the Baroness says to me, I know what T-shirt I know what you're going to wear tomorrow because it's the next T-shirt in the pile. And when I go to my T-shirt drawer, when I just wear that's it, and I go, I'm not into colour coordination or anything like that. And yet, for that 52nd week, we go all Trini and Susanna. We're talking about the width of the stripes, and at Brighton, the issue is that the blue stripe. Then you've got the logo. It then turns into white below, so they're offset.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I'll be honest with you, Kieran. As a Palace fan, it made a pleasant change to shout at a shirt for a couple of days rather than Alexander Seferin.
Yes.
Basically, you forget you can now join our Price of Football Club, where you will get ad-free listening, bonus episodes, and much, much more. Just go to priceoffootball.com and click on Join the Club to sign up today. If you have a question on our regular Tuesday Questions pod, email us at questions@priceoffootball.com. Don't forget you can follow us on X, Twitter, find us on that there, YouTube, and if you'd like to buy our book, you can find details on our website, priceoffootball.com. We'll be back tomorrow with an interview.
Yes.
With the interview, which I mistakenly plugged a day earlier this week. But in the meantime, we'll be back on Tuesday with a full questions pod. And in the meantime, I shall hand you over to Mr. Kieran Maguire for his customary farewell.
Well, thank you as always. And for those Morecambe fans that have been in contact, the reason why we keep talking about you and keep trying to keep you in the public focus, because it's the right thing to do. And as for that Morecambe fan that suggested a new name for the official regulator. You have my sympathies. I won't use that word on the podcast because we might have young people listening. But yes, it is a fair comment directed towards Mr. Whittingham. There's other ways you can support the show, and that is to give us a review. To just jot down a few words. It'll only take you 20 or 30 seconds. But every review helps us in the charts and also when we're trying to book guests and so on to know that, because I look at some podcasts and the last review was in 2021. Our audience are very, very funny with some of their comments as well. It doesn't matter what you say. You could even say you would rather have the show presented by Moose from TalkSport and Snoop Dogg. And I think that could be one laid-back interview.
That'd be like some kind of, well, off the face of it, it sounds like some kind of Tudor Henry VIII style bear baiting type thing, doesn't it? Snoop Dogg on Moose. But you say it'd be laid-back, Kieran. It'd be quite lengthy as well. I had the pleasure of being interviewed by Moose on the Palace demo this week. It was a lovely chat. I have to say, though, in terms of celebrity, my friends, and you know them, they normally don't give a flying toss. If they could see me being interviewed by Prince William, they wouldn't give a monkey's. The Moose, they're like, this is Moose. He's talking to Moose. And suddenly they're all gathered round me going, and I'm going, what are you not doing here? You know, you'd be in the pub run. It's Moose. Very nice chap, Moose. Great. I'd love to be called Moose. That's a proper nickname, isn't it, Moose? I hope he's got it. I should ask him. I hope he's got a full tattoo across his back of a moose, a cartoon moose just across his back. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
The price of football. The price of football.